Yeah, I'm over it. There it is. There's your multi-billion-dollar piece. So I wasn't going to cover the story, but I've changed my mind on it because we want to point out something very important here. This is going back to the LHD-6 that was burnt down last summer. There's been a sailor accused of arson for burning it down, and we didn't know the sailor's name, but there was a search warrant released by a judge or issued by a judge to arrest the accused and formally bring charges against the sailor. Whenever they make the search warrant, it's got the guy's name on it. So now this sailor's name is all over the internet, and it's got to be very stressful for him being accused of this. So let's just read from the piece at first, and then I'm going to point out something that's very important here. A federal search warrant, so federal court, not criminal and not local jurisdiction, federal court, filing an unsealed warrant filing was unsealed this week in the case of a sailor the Navy officially charged last week with setting the fire that devastated the LHD-6, rendering the amphibious assault ship unsalvageable. The sailor is identified as Ryan Mays, 20. He's accused of arson and hazarding a vessel in the charges filed July 29th. Under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is a stricter code than the laws of the states, the U.S. 3rd Fleet spokesman confirmed Mays was a sailor charged last week. So now we know his name. It's unfortunate his name's out there before he's convicted of anything. He's simply accused right now. So let's keep that in mind. All right. He was one of 177 sailors. Okay. So why were these charges brought against him? What's the evidence? Well, we won't know the whole evidence until the case is in court, right? And discovery is made and all that. So what evidence did the judge have, the federal judge have, to issue an arrest warrant for formal charges? I'm about to read it to you, and it's pretty disturbing. This harkens back to the Iowa turret exploding incident, blaming a sailor for something that was more of a material deficiency than a sailor deficiency. It's very likely this sailor is innocent. The reason why the arrest warrant was issued was one sailor, unnamed, assigned to the ship's deck department, told investigators he had seen a light-skinned male wearing clean coveralls, a face mask, carrying a silver metal bucket with both hands, so it was heavy, in front of his body, descending into the lower 5 stowage area on the morning of July 12, 2020, according to a 33-page document. The sailor, still unnamed, told investigators it was Mays, and he had seen in the lower 5 area, just forward of the amidships where the smoke was first observed. The fire then breaks out in that area. So the entire case right now is based on one person's claim. My point is, what if this person accusing the accused, what if he's the arsonist? Who's investigating him? Where's his alibi? Anyway, we don't know. We'll find all that out in the case. It's just, I've seen this happen before where the Navy knee jerks and accuses a sailor of something that is actually either not his fault or is a material deficiency. Now, we're going to address the material deficiency right now. This was clearly sabotage, because check this out. Check this out. The ship burnt down. We're not going to read all that stuff. But what we are going to do is read what happened. There's a picture of him. Amazing listed. We got to get to the good part right here. The search warrant revealed. Initial fire suspensions. I'm trying to get to the good part. This is really, really good. Okay, so possible ignition sources were, there was 5 plastic bottles filled with JP5 or some kind of jet fuel. That was the ignition source. Clearly sabotage at that point. Somebody set these bottles on fire, and the bottles were uncapped plastic bottles containing liquid. And some had been taped up. Some of the caps had been loosened. So one bottle would burn to the next, and it would slowly increase the flame over time. This gives the person setting the flame, the arsonist, time to get away from the scene and have an alibi before the fire starts. Clearly somebody did this intentionally. Okay. So that part hasn't changed, but that's not even the best part. Let's get to the good part. Okay. The 5 containers were found by investigators. We know that. Oh, This is where it begins. Okay, so the ATF investigators found expended CO2 cartridges in the fire debris. So the person who was setting this fire removed CO2 extinguishers and expended them somehow without being detected, so that whenever people went to fight the fire, they found the CO2 fire extinguishers were empty. This is why the fire got out of control so fast, is the initial reactions to a fire on board a ship uses CO2 extinguishers and hoses, and those had been disabled, tampered with, sabotaged as well. This arsonist was very thorough in making sure this ship would burn for a long time before they could get water on the fire stuff. Investigators with input from the ship's damage control assistant found several missing and damaged equipment in 4 firefighting stations in the upper V level, lower V level. I don't know if that's V or 5. One firefighting station had no fire hose, so they completely removed a fire hose. Now, this possibly could be a huge mistake. Somebody never put the fire hose there and it should have been there, or it could have been sabotage. Considering all the evidence, it really looks like sabotage to me at this point. And another fire hose attached to a diving equipment, and another that had been cut. Someone had cut a fire hose. And I don't know if you've ever seen a fire hose, but they have a Kevlar sleeve. They're very difficult to cut. Someone took a long time to cut through the Kevlar sleeve of a fire hose to make it leak. Reminiscent of earlier incident, the document said the DCA, that's the damage control assistant, he's an officer in charge of damage control of the ship, opined that 3 of the 4 fire stations on board the BRH appeared to have been purposefully tampered with or disconnected. Wow, they only had 4 for the whole ship? We have like 3 on a submarine. That's a fraction of the size when we're in dry dock. They only had 4? That's a deficiency right there. They needed like 10. That's nuts. There must be more to that, unless he's wrong. Anyway, my point is the saboteur was very thorough, and it might have been more than one person. And this gentleman might be a scapegoat. So let's keep that in mind. It's possible this man is not guilty, but someone sure the hell is. Definitely sabotage. You can read more about it on the USNI News webpage. All right, let's move on to the next story. Oh, do you guys have any comments on that? I'm sure you do. Sounds more like a national state actors. You know what? I don't want to go down that road, but maybe you're right. Let's let it go through the court system and see what the evidence is. I want to know all the other evidence other than one sailor accuses another sailor. That's ridiculous that they issued an arrest warrant based on that. That judge needs to have a review of his, mindset. So this reeks of Chinese involvement to me, says Deadlock. Probably a paid guy. Wow, man, that's a lot of speculation. Yeah, I don't want to put that out right now. We will see. We will find out. So let's move on to this Russian nuclear submarine, this Oscar II, very similar to the one that we were just fighting in the Cold Waters game we were just playing. So last week, it might have been 2 weeks ago now, they had a big naval parade that they have every year in St. Petersburg, Russia. That's in the Baltic Sea. St. Petersburg is. And they have all these ships that come up, and they either stay at an anchor or they literally parade through the harbor like a parade would and show off the flag. And it's a big PR thing. Hey, look how big our Navy is, how capable our Navy is. So this Oscar II was a part of that parade. That parade's over now. He's going back home. So he's surface transiting in the Baltic Sea perfectly legally. But to transit out of the Baltic Sea, you either have to go through like Sweden's water or Danish waters, because the borders meet up basically in the middle of the Baltic Sea as you go through the narrowest point. So they stay on the surface and they're transiting that, but they lose power while on the surface. So now there's a little bit of embarrassment coming off of a big PR event, and they can't even get home now. So from the piece written by Brett Tingley, the Russian Oscar II nuclear guided missile cruiser submarine Orel had an unknown problem with its propulsion on July 30th while transiting Danish waters. So they were on the Danish side of the straits in the Baltic Sea near Denmark's second largest city, Aarhus. I hope I said that right. Prompting the Russian Navy preparing to tow the submarine before it eventually resumed operations. The details of this incident aren't exactly clear, but Russian submarines have some issues in recent years. Yeah. So here's the deal. There's multiple ways to push this submarine through the water. It's not just nuclear. They can use the battery. They also have a DC motor. Again, can use an AC-DC conversion to run the DC motor, or can use the battery on the DC motor. They also have 2 completely independent propulsion shafts. It's highly unlikely that both of them went down at the same time. Very unlikely. So even if they lost the reactor, it scrammed or something, they could put that propulsion onto the battery and still maintain position at the very least. It makes it sound like this thing was being pushed around by the current at like 1.5 knots or 2 knots. So to lose complete loss of propulsion all at once is highly suspicious to me, because they have multiple ways to turn the screws. There's not just one. And there's a port side and starboard side engine room, essentially, where no parts touch each other. So both would have to fail at the same time. Very suspicious. I strongly believe that they just turned it off and acted like it was broke to see what would happen, to see how the Danish Coast Guard would react. It's very possible that that's what this was. All right, the Barents Observer, which is an online news magazine, reports that the Orel was sailing alongside a Utaloy-class anti-submarine missile destroyer, Vice Admiral Kulikov, from St. Petersburg to the Kola Peninsula. That's where they're home based out of, when the issue occurred. The crew of the Orel could reportedly be seen on the forward deck wearing life preservers, while the Russian Northern Fleet's tugs Altai approached with ropes. The Danish patrol boat HDMS Diana also approached to offer assistance and attempted unsuccessfully to make radio contact with the stricken sub. They essentially were ignored on the radio, because the Danish obviously don't want them drifting any further into Danish waters. And it's a stricken vessel at sea. It's the law of the sea to help each other, if there's ever a stricken vessel. So there you can see the crew. They're kind of standing forward of the sail. That's the typical position for line handling. You can even see they have the ballards raised. So this is all an act, and they're just, acting as if something's wrong with the submarine, or somehow the entire engine room went down. Thank God this happened on the surface. How are you going to get to the surface if you have a casualty like that? You'd have to blow ballast tanks, or at least variable ballast, to make yourself positively buoyant again. All right, here's a little map of where they were. That's the Baltic Sea. That's St. Petersburg's over here on the right. The Danish and Swedish areas are down here. There's no way in or out of the Baltic Sea, the article says, that doesn't cross through Danish or Swedish territorial waters. You got to pick one. So foreign ships typically are escorted by these nations' navies when moving through the area. That's why the Danish ship was there. Those foreign ships are typically allowed to make such transits under international rules of innocent passage, so long as they meet the criteria established in Article 9 of the United Nations Convention of Law of the Sea, which that's complicated. We could make a whole video about Article 9, but we won't. In a Facebook post, the Danish Navy said the 3rd Squadron wrote that this particular escort will go down in history as both dramatic and exciting, as the nuclear-powered submarine Orel, one of the Oscar II class, had problems with propulsion and lay dead in the water. Wow, yeah, it wasn't moving. At Sierra, I think that's a name of a town or something. So it's dead in the water off the coast of Sierra, where it drifted at 1.5 knots, which is basically the current just pushing it around, towards the island. Oh, that must be the name of the island. Okay. The post adds the Danish Navy offered assistance to the submarine, which was politely but not surprisingly declined, especially since they got a Russian tug right there. Why not take help from the Russian tug, which is the reason why the tug went with them, is in case something like this happens. It's just a real embarrassing thing to have happen to any Navy, but it seems to happen to the Russians a lot. They just can't maintain an operational submarine to save their life. But thank God nobody was hurt. We didn't lose the submarine this time. Good for them. That's better than what usually happens to a Russian sub. Continuing with the piece, the Orel was accompanying the Northern Fleet vessels were the Baltic Sea following the naval parade in St. Petersburg on July 25th. I told you about that. They have that every year. The parade included the Orel, a Bory-class submarine, and the Katz Vladimir, and an Akula II nuclear submarine, the Vepr. Here's the Vepr. The Vepr is a very infamous Akula II submarine, a very capable submarine. This one scared us a few times coming down into the Atlantic, crossing over our SOSUS systems, and we were like, where'd it go? We had to go find this son of a bitch, which we did, but it took time. We had to go to sea. I wanted to go home, spend time with family, but I had to go hunt this knucklehead. In addition to the Russian vessels, the Islamic Republic and Iranian Navy, the IRIN, sea base ship Makran, and the frigate Sahand also traversed the Baltic. So we were following these a few weeks ago, their transit. They went around the tip of Africa and up the coast of Africa, all the way up to the Baltic Sea. They even made a little stop into the Med for a little bit around July 4th, if you guys remember that. So he's going home now. It's not clear how he'll go home, if he'll use the Suez Canal or if he'll go all the way around Africa again. We'll see. We'll follow him. Will be another story about him. Russia and the Soviet Union, before it had particularly tight-lipped about accidents and mishaps, which have been impacted by the submarine fleet. In 2000, the Russian Navy lost the nuclear-powered 9A9 Oscar-class submarine, the Kursk, killing all 118 personnel. We just did a subbrief on this Kursk incident. It's on Patreon right now. Recommend you go check it out. The reason why they bring that up is that's the same class as the one that just lost propulsion. Yeah, so really, really bad stuff. Maybe the props got fouled. That's possible because fishing nets get cut or lost at sea from fishermen all the time. And they just drift around these seas. And there's a ton of fishing in the Baltic, as anyone in that region knows. That's a very good point, Deadlock Gunner. P-Pistol says that when it's like a car carrying, is that like when the car carrying Fidel Castro's remains broke down in Havana during the funeral? Yeah, it's embarrassing like that for sure. Sylvian says subbrief. If their own tug didn't help them, could it be an extensive training exercise done by the sub? Yeah, so it's not clear what the intention was. Like they probably, whether it was a drill or not, like if there was some nefarious stuff going on, they would probably go all the way with the act and take on lines from the tug and let the tug pull them through the narrow bits until they got propulsion back again. But it sounds like they got propulsion back before any of that happened. And maybe something did happen. Maybe they did get fouled screws, but it doesn't say anything in the piece about divers going in the water and unfouling the screws, right? It just suddenly got propulsion back again. It really reeks of a reactor scram, but that doesn't make sense because they would just go to the battery until they get the reactor back online. Once you scram the reactor, you can bring the reactor back up because it's still pretty warm because it was just operating, right? So you bring the reactor back up in like 3 or 4 minutes, pretty quick. Okay, good questions, by the way. Rishi says, is there any info on how deep the Iranian ship running now? Oh, that's a good point. Remember, it had a very low draft when it was transiting to St. Petersburg. No, there's not, but I will keep an eye out for that. It would make sense that it's sitting low again because it probably needs a lot of fuel just to get back to Iran. That's a long transit. Even if they use the Suez Canal, that's thousands of miles. So, but we'll keep an eye on that. Good point, Rishi. All right, someone in blue who I can't read the name of because I can't see blue very well. I'm colorblind. Subbrief says, what's the more dangerous of a sub? Enemy sub, destroyer, corvette, helicopter carrier? Well, the helicopter carrier, if the helicopters find you, because they will just keep hounding you. Yeah. But other than that, sub on sub is the most dangerous encounter. The best vessel to sink a submarine is another submarine, hands down. That doesn't matter what Navy it is. Yeah, hands down. Let's see, Grad Angel says, always wondered, how do subs handle kelp? Oh yeah, does it ever get wrapped around the prop? Yeah, but it's organic, so the horsepower of the prop just rips it apart. The things that will foul a screw are nets, cables, lines, man-made things. If it's a hemp line, that's really strong, and it will foul a screw. And the screw will still be able to turn in 99% of the cases. There's some examples of it not being able to that I can think of. But it makes noise. And because it makes noise, you don't want to turn the screw because all it's going to do is damage it even further. Yeah. Yak says, sorry about off-topic question, but do you have any USO stories you can talk about? I never had any USO experiences. Yeah. I wasn't deployed on land very often at all. Honestly, I didn't have very much shore duty in my 20 years. I was at sea a lot. Like, of my 20 years in the Navy, my sea counter is at 13 years and some months. So almost 2/3 of my career on a submarine, and most of that time is underway. It's not all underway, obviously, but a lot of it is. Because I spent the majority of my career on fast attacks, and we don't screw around on the fast attacks. We get into port, we get the repairs done, the weapons loaded, systems repaired if they need to. Maybe somebody takes some leave time because they need to go see their family they haven't seen in 6 months. And then we get right back to sea. Even if there's not a mission to go on, we go back out for independent steaming operations. Very common thing to do. Weekly ops is what we called them. I don't know if that's the official name. And we would go out, we would leave on a Friday. And so we would go all week and then the weekend again and pull back in usually Monday, Tuesday. So like a 10-day training period, very common in the 90s. I don't know if they do that now, but that's kind of how it used to be. It's probably all different now. Yuck says, I already read that one. NASCAR says, could it have been a reactor scram and electrical problem at the same time? I wouldn't put it past them. These submarines, unfortunately, have a history of that. And when one thing goes wrong, something else that is broken but wasn't identified as being broken usually rears its ugly head at that moment. And that's called a compound casualty. That's what sunk the Kursk, the Thresher, a lot of submarines. Luckily, this happened on the surface. Not a big deal. We can all kind of joke about it. I'm just glad they didn't lose any lives. Tipsy says, did you color blindness contribute? Oh, I haven't been colorblind until like recently. There's something about Twitch chat. Blue, I can't see the letters. I don't know why. I'm not really colorblind. Oh, and if you are colorblind, by the way, I don't even think they let you in the Navy, but you certainly aren't on submarines. That's for sure. Yeah. You meant unidentified submerged object. What was that reference to? I do have USO stories that I cannot tell. I look forward to telling them one day, but the Navy has to release the information first. I cannot be the guy that releases USO information to the public. I will go to jail so damn fast. You will never see me again. Yeah. Okay. The Awesomeness 1941 says, I've heard so many takes on HMS Conqueror sinking the Belgrano. What's my take on that? That's part of the Falkland Island War. My take is there are two navies at war with each other, a declared war, and they're both warships. It's a clean shot. It's a clean kill. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. The fact that the Belgrano didn't have a sonar system is a Belgrano problem. And it's solved now. They don't need to worry about it anymore. That's my take on it. All right, let's keep on going. Here we go. Oh, you're going to love this story. It seems like we can't go a week without talking about an LCS here. Here's another LCS story that's going to chap your lips. Pucker up, because Brett Tingley comes at us from the WarZone talking about the LCS program has another problem. Okay, from the piece, he writes, the U.S. Navy rebuilding the littoral combat ship USS Minneapolis St. Paul, LCS-21, after a retrofit of a critical component in the ship's propulsion system. The same issue was repaired on the Minneapolis St. Paul, affects the propulsion systems of all 12 Freedom-class littoral ships. God damn it, they all have this problem. This is the one. Remember, the LCS has two different versions: the Independence, which is like a catamaran design, and the Freedom class, which is this fast boat design here. And instead of screw blades, it's got these big ass Sea-Doo water jet things these move a lot of freaking water. Very fast ship. It's like 40 knots, ridiculous. But they don't work. And when they turn them on, it breaks. That's the problem we're talking about today. This week, the LCS Deputy Program Manager Howard Burkhoff told USNI News that the retrofit as currently planned could take years to implement throughout the fleet. So these 12 ships will not be able to use this high-speed capability regularly, or they'll only have limited use of this high-speed capability because of this problem until it is fixed. And it's going to take years to repair the 12 remaining ships that need this upgrade, need this correction. It's not even an upgrade. There's a problem in the design, and the problem is so deep in the engine room, they got to rip the engine room apart to get to the piece that they need to fix. Yeah, it's ridiculous how difficult this fix is. And they should, do something, not hire maybe that contractor again, the person that designed the power plant, the company that designed the power plant. And we'll get to who that is in the piece. Yeah, you'll be surprised. The turbines can be used to provide extra power to the ship's water jet propulsion, allowing them to reach speeds of over 40 knots, a core requirement for the ships during development. So the reason why we got the LCSs is because they were fast. But these ships can only reach between 10 and 12 knots if they don't have the jet propulsion systems running at maximum. So these ships are limited in speed to 12 knots. That's like an old cargo ship, but it's supposed to be a warship fighting in a war zone, a contested area. Yeah, at 12 knots, it's not going to survive, folks. I'm just telling you. The bearings that are the problem, the bearings that are damaged because of the problem aren't easy to replace, it says from the piece, due to a placement of the combining gear deep within the design's architecture. It's a very complex fix to replace the bearings and the combining gear. It's a very tight space. There's a lot of interferences that have to be removed, said Burkhoff this week, according to USNI News. The Navy's primary contractor, Lockheed Martin, and the combining gear's German manufacturer, these knuckleheads, these are the guys that fucked it up, Rank AG, have proposed 3 different methods of repairing. Well, I have a 4th one. That's decommission the entire class. Just get them all out of here. They're wasting our time and money. The method to repair the Minneapolis St. Paul involving dropping the gear into the ship's mission. Whoa. The method used to repair the Minneapolis St. Paul's involved dropping the gear into the ship's mission bay and removing it through a door in the aft of the hull. They're thinking about bringing it out the bottom. That's kind of a good idea, actually. The ship will undergo sea trials to determine the effectiveness of this design fix. So hopefully it won't take as long if that works for them. I kind of like that idea because the problem's in the bottom of the engine room. So going through the bottom to get to the problem kind of makes sense. It may save us time on the fix. The U.S. Navy, thank God, this is the one smart thing the Navy's done here, stated that it would halt deliveries of the Freedom class until it solved the combining gear issue, and that it had already taken preventative measures to prevent damage to relevant LCSs already launched that are still awaiting the retrofit. Do you know what that fix is, ladies and gentlemen? It is to maintain your speed to 10 to 12 knots on a warship, which means the fleet that it's with, the carrier that it's with, 10 to 12 knots, or they leave it in the dust. This thing has become a liability at this point. Jesus. The piece continues. It also remains unclear who will ultimately bear the brunt of the cost associated with replacing the bearings. It better be the freaking Germans. Oh my God. Discussion between Lockheed Martin and the Navy is ongoing to determine the exact amount of service, the exact amount the service will contribute. However, the Navy's Howard Burkhoff told the Defense News that there is a latent defective clause. Oh, good. There's a clause in the contract, in the contracts with Lockheed Martin that states that the cost will be shared on such fixes. Oh my God. So we wrote a contract and approved it with Lockheed Martin that if there was anything wrong with the design, we would split the cost and not charge the contractor. I'm not surprised. I'm not. I'm tired of being surprised. Yeah, I'm over it. There it is. There's your multi-billion-dollar piece of shit. It's got a 5-inch gun and a Sea-Whiz and a helo deck. And can go 12 knots. I'm done. It's over. I'm no more. What do you guys think? Cabo says, my solution, scrap them. And yeah, I know, build more Burks. The Arleigh Burke is such a good design. You're so right. Especially the Flight 3. Oh, it's so sweet. It's so good. I heard Lockheed Martin proposed installing oars. Yeah, right. It's not it's 57 millimeter. Thank you for the correction, Tyrepo. 57 millimeter, not a 5-inch gun. Anyway, let's just end it here. I can't go on. We're going to do more cold waters. We'll come back in 5 minutes and do more cold waters. Okay. Cause I can't talk about this anymore.